Okay. Good evening. I will now call to order the October 10th, 2024 City of South Pasadena Library Board of Trustees meeting. Administrative Secretary Sean Fay, please call the roll.
Sure. Annie Chang Long,
Present.
Kenneth Gross,
Here.
Minson Meeker,
Here.
Edward Pearson.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any public comments?
We did not receive any.
Okay, then we will close the public comment period. There's no one in the room. And move to, does anyone wants to reorder, add, or delete anything from the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go to the next item. Approval of the minutes for September 12th. Trustees meeting. Do you guys have any questions on the minutes or anything?
You might need time to look at them.
Yeah,
You just
okay.
got them like an hour and a half.
Okay. I was not here.
And I didn't see it in the packet here. I thought I saw they are in the packet here.
If you look at the footer, it's page 7 of the packet is where it starts. I'm trying to put page numbers in the whole packet because there's already page numbers on different things. So I just.
Yeah, that one.
Well, I'm gonna move that we approve the minutes as drafted.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Sean, can we call roll?
Sure. Annie Chang Long,
Abstain?
Kenneth Gross,
Yes.
Minson Meeker,
Yes.
Edward Pearson.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Wonderful. Okay, exciting. Library Community Center Site Planning Project Progress Updates.
So,
Reports.
since Bianca's not here, I will give that report. So at the ad hoc committee meeting in September, we talked about, they had reviewed 6 submissions. And based on that review, we narrowed it to the 3 that we would interview. So we talked a little bit about that and how that decision was made and.
For the consultant.
Yeah, for the consultant. Yeah, I mean, that's been really their focus, is just to we're trying to get that done and get that firm hired. So everybody agreed these 3 firms were the firms that we would interview. So we had interviews in September, what did I say? September 24th. We interviewed 3 firms, and the interview panel included 2 members of the ad hoc committee that we chose at random from those that were interested in doing it. And that was Bianca and Tom Afshar, who is a library neighbor. He lives right across the street, and he has a background in engineering and architecture and public works. So those 2 represented the ad hoc committee. Councilmember Braun was on the panel, Ted Gerber, who's our public works director. And then we had 2 folks from other outside entities. So we had Nikki Winslow, who's the director of the Pasadena libraries, and they're in the process of doing renovations of their library. So she's been through a lot of this just recently. And then John Jones, who's a retired community services director of many, many years. I think he did he was hired to do our community services department operational assessment. So he knows our agency pretty well. So that was who was on the panel. We had the 3 firms come in. I think that it was pretty clear at the end that there were 2 of the 3 that we thought would be good for this phase of the project. And in discussion, it was interesting because I had in my mind who I thought had been like the best and was like knocked it out of the park, no question. And I didn't, as a staff member, I was kind of not saying anything until asked, but people have different ideas, but ultimately everyone I think was okay with either of these firms. And sort of said, it's up to staff because you're the ones who have to work with this firm and do the work. So all the three staff members that were present, myself and Lucy Jacobian, who is now our community services director. She was just made director a week or so ago. And Melissa Snyder, who's the community services supervisor at the senior center, were there, and we all liked one of the other firms better. So we're in the process of doing those reference checks and trying to work out the professional service agreement with them. And hopefully take an award of contract to council on November 6th. So we have kind of a tight turnaround, but I think that the issue we have is that the RFQ scope of work is a little bit maybe overly broad. And so I think when people even responding to that RFQ, you could tell that it was sort of maybe a little bit of a struggle to try to fit in what are they proposing within this kind of budget that they knew we had budgeted a certain amount. So I think we just want to refine that a little bit and make sure it's very specific as to how many public meetings do we want, how many focus groups, that kind of thing. So there may be a little bit of back and forth with the firm to hammer those things out, but I think it's pretty straightforward. We just want to make sure that the scope, we can't just take the scope like straight out of the RFQ and drop it in. I think it needs a little bit of tweaking. So that's where we're at. The firm that we're talking to, what we liked about them is that they are very experienced with this type of project. They have a list of, community centers, libraries joined community centers, very long list of projects that they've worked on. The other firm that was also, people thought, yeah, they could do it, we would like them, that maybe was even preferred a little bit by some of the other people on the panel, have much less experience with libraries, only like maybe 2. And I think that was for the staff, that was one of the big factors, is that the firm that we're talking to really just has a lot of experience doing this exact kind of work. And I think we felt that in terms of kind of character and culture of the firm, that they would be a good fit in this community, because such a big part of this phase is the engagement piece. So I'm picturing someone standing in the community room trying to talk to our residents about this and share our vision. And I think that kind of just that, are they a good fit for South Pasadena, is a big part of it. And so we think that they're going to excel at that aspect of this, very friendly, down to earth, but extroverted and passionate, very passionate about public buildings. So I think that they'll be a good fit.
What did people like about the other firm? Why did some folks prefer the other firm?
I think, what do they like about the other firm? I honestly think they maybe like the personalities. I mean, really, they at that point when you're interviewing, they could all do the job, right? I mean, these are the 3 out of 13. So
Are they all California based?
yeah, they're all in California. I don't think any of the top 6 were not in California. So yeah, I don't know if I can even speak to that. I mean, again, I was sort of, when the presentations happened and, we had our questions and answers. I mean, I honestly thought when everybody left the room, everyone would just be like, oh, for sure, it's this one. And they didn't do that. And I was like, oh, I must be in a different, it was really interesting to hear why they didn't think that, as not so much as why they thought the other, you know what I mean? And I don't really know, but honestly, we were rating them, a total score, I forget what the total possible score, but one was an 8, one was a 9, one was a 9 and a 9, one was a 9 and an 8. There was only one panelist who had a pretty significant preference. I mean, also was fine, this other one can do it too, that's fine, but had a stronger preference. And I don't know if I really know why. if it's just,
Yes, yeah, and sorry, I think part of this was all being discussed before I joined the board, so I'm like still trying to catch up. So is the site planning consultant, they're gonna be the architect for the actual new library, or this is just a consulting company to do the engagement and come up with a plan, and then you guys will do an RFP or something for an architect?
correct. I think that it's done differently, right, in different cities. But in this case, yes, we're only seeking someone at this stage to do this kind of first needs assessment discovery phase. And the idea is that you come out of that with enough of a product and an understanding that you can get people on board and excited and find out whether you're going to be able to raise the money. So you're not going to come out with, design, renderings of what the library could look like. You might come out with something very vague, like, oh, we could do this in the park. But what you're really coming out with is a really clear understanding of what do people want and what would be offered in the space, like what are the exciting things about sharing space, and some of the key things that basically how are you going to meet those needs that the community expressed through the engagement. And then yes, the next phase is if you decide you're going to continue with this, if you think you have the funding to continue, then you would go out again to bid either for design services alone or like design build and how there's different models.
That's what I wasn't sure. Do they stay with us or we select through the whole project as a consultant advisor? They help us select an architect, help us select a general contractor?
No, because they would be competing probably to be the design and contractor. They do. So one of the references I talked to today, they were hired unusually at the very beginning to do everything. So they were hired to do the outreach phase, the design phase, and see them through construction. So this firm does both. I mean, probably more on the design side, that's where they're going to make their money, is doing design of actual buildings. So yeah, the firm that we work with now, I'm assuming would apply if we were actually moving forward with design and construction. They would want to be considered.
But would we have a consultant that stays with us the whole time? For a project this size, you would want somebody that interfaces with all, with the general and with the subs and addresses issues and make sure everything's paid, just so we don't have to micromanage.
I think that's when you go out, once we get kind of this idea of what's possible and what people want, then when you do the RFQ for the design piece, those are the people that do that. Those are the people that take you from, I have no design whatsoever, to developing that design. And that also is going to have some additional community engagement, right? It's not a specific, like, I want a meeting room. It's what color do you want? It's keeping people engaged as you're going through that design piece. But those are the people that are going to see you through construction.
So Kathy, and sorry again if this was already discussed, just like, what is the estimated time frame for potentially a new library or site? What, 5 years, 8 years, 15 years?
I mean, I don't really know if you talk to different, it depends on funding, right?
Okay.
Like, I want to say that San Marino, it took them like 10 years. I think there's going to be, when we get to the end of this process, it's kind of where the rubber meets the road in terms of, are we're going to move forward? Because design, that's like millions of dollars, so you really have to decide, am I going to spend $3 million on design when I don't know where I'm going to get the money to build it? And some people do say, okay, I did the design, I'm shovel ready, somebody give me the money. So it's a decision, it's a big decision, right, though, that has to be made at that step. Like, are we, how comfortable do we want to be that the money is available to us before we, and part of this phase 2 is costing. So these firms in this phase, they have specialists that's all they do, is based on the needs assessment, and kind of, again, you're coming out not with like oh, it's a beautiful Spanish, architecture. You're coming out with this idea of how much space, and what type of space, and based on all of that, you're getting some idea the cost. And so that's been part of what you have at the end of this process, 60 million, 50 million, whatever it is. And then that's where you are with this decision about where do we move forward? So I think that the big thing is how long does it take to secure the funding? And then in terms of the actual design and building, I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that's a year and a half, 2 years, something like that for a big, for a big project, I would think too.
So is one of the options being considered is that we don't build the new facility as grand as we've been talking, maybe just build the children's library so we can use the request
Yeah.
and work with what we've got and do everything we need to make it the best.
I think so, right? Exactly. I think at some point, someone who is in a position to make those decisions has to decide whether they think that the city has the appetite to try to do such a big project and whether they think that the money can be found. And I think that, yes, we want to think about it in different possibilities. And I think the firms, when they interviewed, talked about that, like, we know you might not get this dream whole rebuild. So they'll be thinking about kind of a plan A or a plan B or, and helping us. We've done this needs assessment. So then everybody wants everything, but what are the smaller segments of that, okay, we can't do the whole thing. So let's just try to implement this phase A, which is the children's room or whatever it might be, new electrical, a small remodel to get meeting rooms or something like that. So for sure, that could be one of I think when you get to the decision point about what's next, there's a lot of options. We have to do something in this facility to keep it afloat, I don't think that just doing nothing at all is really an option. And I don't think that community would be satisfied with that either. They want improvements. I don't know if they want, to tear down the whole library and start over. I don't know, because we haven't found that out yet. But yeah, I think that when that decision making comes, it's going to depend on who's sitting on the council, who's the city manager, what is the economy like?
But the Friends also have a 21st Century Committee they had started many years ago, a fundraising committee around the facility.
Yeah.
And then it didn't get very far. And they were the ones that contracted with a fundraising consultant to figure out how much could be raised in the city, right?
Yes, I think, well, they didn't go that far. So yes, so the Friends of the Library, there had been a long discussion, you probably remember, about having a library foundation and separate from the Friends, a separate entity. That decision, they decided that the Friends didn't support that decision, so you really can't have a foundation that your friends don't approve of. So the alternative was that the Friends can do that type of fundraising, they felt. So they did put together, with the help of some consulting, kind of a structure for when that need arises. So if tomorrow we said, okay, we're building a building and we need $2 million for the furniture and fixtures, then that committee would become activated. And it includes, really what exists is the bare bones of like what positions are on it, not the people. Like they would still have to go out and recruit people to be on the 21st Century Committee for the library. So it's sort of like there's this structure in place, and there's the idea is that when the need is finally there, because we haven't had the need, there's nothing to show people, there's nothing to, raise money for right now, that then they would activate that committee. And I think that, again, because it would be really starting it from scratch, they probably would need additional support from a consultant or someone who has some experience doing that. I also think that if you're talking about raising big gifts, I think that there are some people in the city who there's some question of being collaborative about the fundraising, so that you don't have a city council member asking someone for funding while a friend of the library is asking for some, like there has to be some coordination, because you may only get one chance, right? And if someone is offended or gets alienated, I think that it's not as simple as, okay, Friends, your 21st Century Committee, go ahead, they're gonna have to do that in collaboration with whoever it is that's helping the city try to raise those private funds. And there's different ways that this could happen. I mean, they could do like a feasibility study to see, do we even think we could raise private donations in that? You know, that's a step that often is taken before you even, you just go out and they survey and try to determine if the community would support that kind of fundraising.
So Kathy, it's
Yeah.
only private fundraising? I assumed it was some sort of like bond measure.
Well, yeah, they don't, I mean, that's the decision that has to be made.
Okay.
Is how will we get the money? Where will we get the money? I mean, I think the intent is that, or at least when I hear people talk about it, is that, yes, there has to be some kind of government funding, and that we think it's our turn to get earmarks from our state senator and our state, representative, assembly member. Lots of other San Gabriel Valley cities have received those kinds of one-time earmarks. So I think there's a feeling that when we're ready and have the story to tell and it's compelling, that's when you go to those people. And I know council members have already talked to both of them about it. And they just say, well, when you're ready, let me know, like when you have a plan in place and you're clearly committed and your community wants it, and that's when you ask them. So there's no guarantee, obviously, it depends on the state budget, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think the intent is that we would like to see some money from the state budget. And then, yes, there's the option of, is it a bond? There's certainly a lot of other capital projects in the city that, we don't have funding for. So I think all of that is just to be determined. And it's just so far beyond, like, our focus right now is really just, for the first time ever, really looking at community services, seniors, and library as a whole, right? Because we've done our own strategic plan, we've done our own, in 2003, 2004, our entire own design for a new, wholly renovated building. I don't think it even took that into account at all at that time. There might have been a little bit in those plans about the senior center. And then they've done their own operational assessments and needs assessments. And when they were exploring the idea of a community center at Orange Grove Park, they went through, they have design. I mean, they have designs, renderings of what it could look like. So they went through this whole process for that. And the only part that we had to do with that was, oh, if they move out, you could maybe have that space. Like, there was no joint assessment of what are the benefits of co-locating these things? Where do we want to be in 15, 20 years? How are demographics changing? So I think that even if we get to the end of this and there's a lull while we either don't have the political support, I just don't know what that's going to be like. But if there is a lull, I feel like this is such a big deal to get this done and be able to say to fundraisers and to the community, we've asked them, they want this. This is how fantastic it will be. Here's all the benefits. For the first time, we would have that. And it wouldn't be the library doing its own thing and making the seniors mad, and the community services doing their own thing. And, it's the first time that really, for such a small city with so little property and land, it just makes sense, right, to try to make the most of what we have. So I think that regardless of like phase 2 design and fundraising and actually doing something, this is just a really important part. And all the firms kind of emphasize that, right? Like, this is the thing. This is what anybody can design it once you know what it's supposed to be like, like that's our architects can do that. But this is just crucial because this is when you're getting people engaged and involved and excited about it, and the neighbors that live straight across the street, not, picketing it and saying they don't want it. You know what I mean? Like, it's that all happens, I think, through this piece. So yeah, there's a lot of like unknowns, right, about what happens when this is over.
When this contractor is selected, who do they report to at the city?
I think that, well, that's a good question. So the project, technically, was under the oversight of the deputy city manager, but the deputy city manager has been on leave. And so I was assigned to cover while that person was on leave. So that's what's been happening since September? I don't know. Whenever, no, not September, it is September, May, I don't, sorry. I don't know what month it is. So basically, myself, with the help of, community services, Lucy and Melissa, have been sort of managing it, but I don't really know, like, if the deputy city manager, if and when they come back, that's a conversation we have to have about who's gonna be responsible for what. I think that, in this phase in particular, they can't do it without us, right? I mean, we're gonna be involved in communicating with our customers and, yeah. But who's like in charge, I don't know. I don't know, we'll see, but I think that, yeah, there's no way that it could be done without a ton of involvement from the departments that are concerned, yeah.
Other questions? Volunteer recognition committee.
And there's no Kevin, so.
I think I was hoping that, I told her, I was hoping that we could maybe have a discussion here, but I don't feel like we can without the friends, so.
Yeah.
Could we talk about, National Friends of the Library Week?
Yeah.
We could talk about that a little bit. It's sort of like, one of the things that I think the committee could do is, think about,
She has
yeah, there's a little thing there, like, looking at like the year and what do we need to be planning for in advance? So this sneaks up on me, right? Like a week ago, I'm like, oh shoot, it's been on my calendar, but I'm like, oh my.
I didn't even know there was.
It's like
such
2
a
weeks
thing.
from now, yeah, like.
Did you do with something before? I don't remember.
No, every year
Oh,
I
yeah.
just frantically post things on social media saying, thank you, friends. Yeah, like we haven't taken any kind of, organized proactive approach. And it doesn't mean we have to either, but it would be nice to say, okay, well, what happens during the year? We have National Friends Library Week. We have probably a Trustees Week for all I know. There's probably like something for you guys. There's, we do our volunteer recognition there, like what are kind of the things throughout the year? And then there's National Volunteer Day, there's other things too. They're not library specific, but, the ALA, and Ed, this is the same division, the training that you went to, like for libraries, they're the ones who kind of run this. And they have all kinds of resources and suggestions for things you could do. A lot of these things are linked if you look at the digital. So like I've downloaded the marketing material. So again, I mean, at the least, we can try to do some, just some social media and send an email out and give them some recognition.
It says here you can do a letter to the editor. You could do that to this,
Yeah,
I could write one to
that'd be great.
South Pasadena. I don't know what the timing requirements they have are, but.
I think that you have to get things to them by Thursday, but we could do it a week late. I mean, you could say last week was National Friends of the Library Week and they're so forth,
Thursday before.
Yeah, today. No, wait.
No, the week is.
Well, no,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole weekend.
As long as it's more.
Yeah, like next to, I believe by next Thursday, but the earlier the better, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, as I was looking at, this resource list. And that's something that Ed talked about is this idea of what can a board like this do, right? So letters to the editor, letters to elected officials, getting a proclamation at city council, there's things like that.
We just did the proclamation for them though.
Yeah, we
during the
do April.
volunteer recognition.
Yeah,
event.
we've not, well, I mean, it's a little bit different, right? Like friends, I don't know. Yes, we probably wouldn't do the volunteer thing in April proclamation and then do another proclamation. Probably wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, I just think that it'd be nice if we had an idea of what throughout the year happens and what do we or don't we want to do for any of those given things, and you know, how far in advance do we need to start working on it? And yeah, like, I mean, I feel bad that I'm like, oh, it's a week from now, and you know, and now you have to go write a letter to the editor, but if you would like to do that, that's great.
I talked to Kevin really briefly at the end of the last meeting and we were like, shoot, like we need to connect. I think he said at the end of the last meeting that they don't want to combine our events. So maybe he and I can connect in between, well, this meeting and the next to put together like a calendar and talk about kind of what Kathy's suggesting, because I also need to plan ahead, because
Yeah.
otherwise things sneak up and yeah. So I think you started an email thread with Kevin, so I can reply, we can find a time.
Because the volunteer week or the volunteer event we usually do is in April,
April.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
And isn't his membership event January?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that he said we can keep it separate, but we can check in.
Are we gonna wanna do a volunteer event next April in the manner which we've done in the past, but then this past year we talked about not really doing much, or?
Well, I mean, that's why we made the committee to kind of be thinking about that. I mean, I think my recollection, and we can look back at the minutes, was that yes, we would do it again and we would lessen the workload. We would use the same graphic design and just stick in the new information. You know, but I think there was the idea that there would be thinking about what that could look like, what we should or shouldn't do, what, you know.
We talked about doing a survey.
We talked about doing a survey,
yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
wanted to ask you, like, what would most of them actually want
Yeah,
to
what
do?
would you
Because
like?
there's not that many
Yeah.
that came,
Right.
well, there were some who were very happy to be there.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was less
No,
than 20.
attendance, no, well, it's probably, I think we had like, Sean, do you remember how many people were at the volunteer recognition event?
I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can look that up real quick.
Thank you.
Wasn't it something I recall that we were very late in planning it? And I think we kind of got discouraged and didn't want to put the time into doing something because it's a lot of planning. But I think if you stand back 6 months before it's going to happen, the way I like the ones we did a couple years ago. We had the,
Mhm.
you know, and
I don't know if we were late this year, if we just, or if it's just the workload regardless of the year, you know, not so much late
I
as
think it was
just.
because you were doing, I mean, the staff was doing all of it, like.
Right.
and that's when we started.
That's
We
right.
did a little bit more this time, but.
We had
I mean,
about, sorry, we had about 55 people,
and including you guys, I mean, right,
Yeah.
that includes.
yeah, including everyone.
So, I mean, basically, the attendance has been on the decline. That demographic is changing, right? It used to be a core group of mostly women who knew each other from other things in the community. And a lot of those people are no longer with us. You know, there's just, it's a different group. We have people that work and they're not coming to something in the middle of the morning on a weekday. So I think that there are different reasons or things going on that are impacting the attendance. So yes, I think that you're right. We were gonna try to survey the broader Friends membership and bookstore people especially to see, yeah, what would make you feel valued? Would you feel more valued if you got a thank you letter in June? You know, like what else could we be doing? Why are all our eggs in that basket?
does it have to be I mean, what was the reason for a volunteer recognition event? Did it have to be called that? Could it be some other type of event which might have a broader appeal where you could also? do
Yeah, I
that?
mean, it could be anything that you guys, it's your event, right? It's your event, so it could be anything that traditionally, that's what it's been. I don't know what the first year, it's 20 years or something. I mean, it's been quite. Sean, you could look that up too, if you want to look at the history of volunteers of the year, you could see what dates, how far that goes back.
Okay,
But
give
it's
me
like,
a
I think
moment.
yeah, I think it's like 20 years.
But they didn't want a volunteer of the year anymore, right?
Right.
No, we took that away, but
Yeah.
that's the list that we have will tell us
Mm.
when this started. Otherwise,
It might be like a South Pass Heritage Day or something where, you know.
Yeah.
Something might have broader. appeal.
yeah, I mean,
I-
sure. It could- Sorry,
I
go ahead.
have it from 1998 until I think 2017, no, until 2021.
So in 98, they've been doing the volunteer recognition event every year, the same way. And, you know, that things are changing. And so I think that's, it's natural that we're seeing a change in turnout, you know? So I just think, well, I guess, yeah, so I guess that, first of all, the burden became more and more on the staff. But then you get to this point where it's like return on investment, you know, like if you have a room full of 100 people and it's the greatest event ever and they're all just so happy, then it's worth all that work. If you have an event that people are like, you know, okay, I guess I'll go, you know, you just have to start asking what should we be doing? What could we be doing? So yeah, I think that's right.
Survey would be nice because like, I think I mentioned this the last time we talked, I do a lot of volunteer work for the school. Like, I don't go to any of their volunteer recognition events. Like, it's like not my thing. They also do it in the middle of the workday, which I can't go to.
Yeah.
And honestly, like sometimes the staff will write us a nice thank you note and that's enough for me. Like, I love it. So I feel like doing a survey just to find out, like, some people may really like the event and we continue it for the 60 people who come every year. And then there's like 50 that get a card in the mail or whatever, but I feel like there's just different ways to honor people.
Like, do they want special
like a
shirt, you know,
pin or-
special
yeah.
logo, swag, it's just for them, or, yeah, like what would make people happy? And I think the other thing about it for me was just that, so again, all our eggs are in that basket. So the people that don't come, they get nothing at all. I mean, this year we sent everybody pins and we did that, but right, like, so if you're only now serving a smaller and smaller percentage of the total volunteer population, it's, I'm feeling bad for those people that are not getting recognized because that's the only form of recognition that we have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should try to do a survey by the end of the year and
Yeah.
we can maybe just ask Kevin that if he's okay with sending it out.
Mhm.
Or we can send it out if he should probably send it out because they're, you know.
Probably they would, I mean, yeah, I mean, the bookstore committee people would have to send it to their people, probably. They probably the ones that maintain that list, but Kevin would send it to all of the
Members.
restoration concerts and the board members and folks like that.
Anything else on the volunteer recognition? Library operations? Oh, sorry, no, policy, administrative policies review.
Yeah, and I don't have any updates. I know that last time, I think you guys were gonna get together again and then maybe meet with staff. So I don't know where we are. I mean, this is. you know,
Last time I hadn't finished reviewing all the different cities, so I want to finish that and then get with Min. I finished doing that, we just talked before the meeting and we're gonna get together next week
Okay,
and then figure out you know, where we wanna go with it and then meet the state.
great.
So like, for when we meet, what would be helpful coming into it, like meeting with your team for us to?
Well, my impression was that you guys thought you might actually just sort of take a crack at drafting, right?
Right.
Which is awesome.
Oh, that's not one, that reminds me, I don't know if you gave it to me already, is there a Word version of what
Of
we
the
have?
old one?
Yeah,
I haven't, but yes. I can
yeah,
send
and
you
then we
that.
can kind of work from that, knowing those were many of the things we want to include and.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, again, I do think it's like a rewrite. I don't know, it's not worth
Okay,
redlining that thing, but it is, in my mind anyway, it's like, okay, it was on there before. Is it or not? Is it, why or why not in terms of bringing it over? So yeah, I can send a Word version of code. So I don't know, I guess coming into staff would be, well, whatever draft you have and just being able to, you know, talk us through it and, I think that, you know, we're all just going all the time, but we have a lot of thoughts in the back of our mind that we've talked about all of these things. So I think if we are in a sit down space that's specifically for that purpose, Barb and Nada and maybe even other staff, I don't know, we'll see who should come, but we'll have a lot of thoughts and probably have some good, you know, feedback or questions or contributions or whatever. So.
And then if we have any thoughts or recommendations about the municipal code? Those are like recommendations that would go to the city.
Yeah, I would just kind of keep those in a separate, like a separate list
Okay.
and, I mean, basically, as we're doing the code of conduct, I do think we should assume, because they go hand in hand, right? So I do think we should assume that ultimately we will be making some changes. So yeah, but it'd be a kind of a second separate process. I mean, the other thing about the code of, the municipal code, I mean, it just continues to be sort of this toothless. You know, I mean, we have a woman right now who's banned. She comes every day, every day, and, can't figure out, isn't going to be compliant, doesn't have the capacity to be compliant. So, you know, we're gonna issue her citations every day. I mean, you know, and even if she could have 50 citations, it's not gonna change her behavior. These are people that are not, you know, in a position to make good conscious decisions. So I don't know, the whole, I'm curious about the municipal codes of other cities. I know, I think somebody said, oh, somebody has fines, but that again, these are not people who will pay fines. Although someone on one of my staff talked about an example of a library that had someone who they do have fines, you know, like. in
San
municipal
Marino
code.
does fines.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
For like, if you break the.
That's one of the
Okay.
the penalties. in
Yeah.
there, yeah.
So they may have, and again, this example that I think Barb sent it to me was someone who does have the capacity to make good decisions and wasn't, and was just a really difficult, awful person that wouldn't follow the rules. So they were fined and they paid their fine, but the majority of the people, a fine is not gonna be any more effective than the threat of a misdemeanor.
Do we have an appeal process in our,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's written, I mean, it's not elaborate, but it's in the municipal code. It's like, if it's a ban of such and such length, the appeal is to me or you guys or the city manager, like, yeah, there is. It's not elaborate though. Glendale had a much more elaborate step by step. You have this much time to do it and whatever.
And then do you have I think the last meeting or the meeting before you mentioned this, are you guys moving forward with the security person?
Yeah, I have a little in the operations update. I'll talk about that, but yes, we'll talk about that when we get to that. I do have a number of updates on that kind of
So
topic.
when we like draft something, can we like, in terms of, you know, enforcement or escalation, like, can we talk about like roles and responsibilities of library staff, including security? Or it's like, if it's, the security is like, you know, not permanent because you guys get held out, should we just
I think
loosely
that,
use like library staff?
I think I would say, you know, you could say staff or their designees.
Okay.
Or something,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is part of the, and we'll get to it, but part of the conversation about the security guard, and I think I told you in September, I think I had already met with him, right? Had we?
yeah, you had that.
Yes, and so the issue that I was having was, the presentation.
Hmm.
And it's like, this is not what we're picturing, and as we've been continuing to discuss it, what has kind of come out is that we had a different idea of what it was expected of them. I'm like, I don't expect you to tackle, you know, you're just gonna do what we do so that we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to do anything above and beyond what we do every day without bulletproof vests.
Mhm.
So I think we've kind of gotten that figured out. So basically, security guards will just be doing what we're doing now, but so we don't have to. So I think that when you're writing up the role and responsibility of staff, the security guard is essentially gonna have the same role and responsibility. They might have some more direct line of communication with the police department, or, you know, there may be something like that, but honestly, I think that they're basically gonna be doing what we do. So I think you can think of them that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else on line?
Thank you guys for
Okay.
working on that.
Library operations?
So let's see, what do I have in here? So staffing, we're still plugging away. We have the 3 new aides have started. Jose and Alicia and Dane. Dane is a local. He's been here for like 25 years. I haven't gotten to know him very well, so I don't know his whole story, but, we love having like, someone who just walks to work. It's great. And then the clerk positions, there are 2 vacancies. There's a clerk 1, a part-time clerk 1, and a part-time clerk 2. Ultimately, our goal is to eliminate those, to have 1 classification and not 2. So we put in a requisition to underfill the clerk 2 vacancy using the clerk 1 recruitment list that we're doing right now. And it's all internal promotional opportunities. So I think there's 3-4 people have applied. So basically out of that pool of people, we would fill both of these positions, and then we would have because it's not a clerk 2, we would have 2 aide positions to then fill based on those promotions and that list. So basically the first 3 aides came from a recruitment that we did in the fall. In the fall. Yes, we were doing the recruitment in the fall, and the city said, you can't hire anybody. But there were these 3 people still on that list, and that's it for that list. So that we did another aide recruitment. So we should have a good pool of current people who have recently applied for this position to fill both the 2 vacancies we have now and the 2 we will have when we promote 2 aides to clerks. So it is great. I mean, if you think about 18 hours times 3, I mean, it's a lot of body work time that we've been not having.
What is a jumping spider?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Not something that I would probably keep as a pet, but each to his
A
own.
lot of cats, but
What's
a
that?
lot of cats. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, the library people are, they're really into cats. On the back of the kitchen door, we have like pet of the month and people have their pets. I wanted to show you this, but that's why we need the TV. So just today, I got an email from the state library. And I don't know what this was all about, but they basically were doing some really nice kind of video pieces about some of these programs that they had funded. So they did a little video, what is it, like 4 minutes or 3.5 minutes, about that they did when we did the indigenous plant stuff program. And it's just so nice, like that, what you can do with a good film editor, I'm like, is that even our community room? Oh, who are all those people? Like, it looks totally, yeah, I mean, I'm like, wow, it makes us look really, really sophisticated and nice. So, I definitely, you can click on the link here, or I'll email it to you too, just to make it easy, because it's fun to watch. And, Alexis is, the spokesperson. They interview a bunch of attendees, and Alexis said, as is typical here, she's working the event basically by herself. So she's in charge of the people, the technology, the speakers. And meanwhile, she's like having to be interviewed for this thing. So she's like, I don't know what I said. I was so frazzled. I said, no, you were good. You're very good. So she was really great. So that was kind of fun to see that today. And then the California Library Association conference is in Pasadena in a week or so. And because it's so close by, it's a great opportunity. So a number of staff will be going. Olivia is participating in a few things. She's on a panel. She's related to the South Pasadena grant. She's participating in another session. And then there's just a lot of good stuff. I mean, I haven't even looked at the schedule yet. I will go to the library directors meeting. They have like an all-day meeting for the public library directors. But there's lots of good sessions that staff are planning to attend, everything from the student success library cards that are mandated by the state now. We have to get those implemented for all kids. Building design stuff. Restroom design is always on our mind because our restroom is such a challenge. So it should be a good a good conference and a good chance for staff to kind of step away from the daily grind and really think about the profession and why they do what they do and where we want to go. So that is happening. And then,
We'll talk about like, managing the unhoused.
there's the whole theme of the conference is something about like wellness or something. I heard it's definitely, there's a big focus on kind of burnout, stress, trauma, maybe not so much about what to do about it, but what to do in the aftermath, you know, like we are stressed and we are burned out, and now what do we do for staff? I'm sure there's some things. I mean, there's a session on social workers in the library. And again, there's a lot of this stuff on kind of mental health. So yeah, I would have to look at the schedule to see if there's anything specific. There's already a lot of stuff out there for that, right? I mean, there are trainings, there's recorded trainings, there's people who specialize in the kind of behavior management piece and how to do that and how to do it, you know, with compassion, which, I mean, compassion is not what's I mean, you know, right? Like the compassion is not the problem. We have compassion. So yeah, I don't know how much it will be like practical. Like what do you do about these things? But this leads to the next topic, if you're ready. If you guys have other question now. So health and safety. So I think you know that for now, it's like 2 years, I think. The city is part of a program through the San Gabriel Valley of Government. San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments.
Council of Cities, isn't it?
Yeah, it's yes, thank you. Probably council. No, it's COG, government. Anyway, I just say SGD COG. So it's a program that is it's a mental health crisis response team. And when it became apparent that team was not in the business of helping connect homeless people to social services, that's what our city and our council member that was very involved in getting us to be part of this program was expecting. He was expecting a team that would do that. So then it turned out that no, they won't. The mental health team does one thing, but okay, we'll give you the supplemental team that'll do the housing, you know, the homeless kind of social services connection. But that team was like 2 hours a week on a Friday. So, you know, really wasn't very useful for us. So, I'm trying to kind of figure out, I met with the chief and the city manager, and Allison Becker, who's the acting, community development director, about all of this, and kind of what is their role, what is happening, how do we get a hold of them, what can they do? I think that we're having a real communication kind of breakdown, I think, internally in the city that we need to work on. Like, if we're the ones that need the help from that type of service, then someone needs to remember to tell us when the hours change or whatever. So I think there's some improvement there. And I also am just reaching out to them directly to see if I can just start, you know, let's just see if we can build a better relationship with. So the Council of Governments is the entity that runs the whole program. They hire an organization called Mikata. So kind of building direct relationships with the program managers at Lakota and the management analysts at the COG that does this stuff. So that we have a direct line to them, because the way that these teams, when they are available, get dispatched is we have to call dispatch, we call the police, and the police make the determination about whether or not that type of, you know, response should be dispatched. And we don't know if they're available. Like, it's like, we just don't know. I mean, they've almost like never been dispatched here. So, you know, we're like, we feel like there's this team, but we never see them. So it's just that we're kind of ships in the night. So we need to work on that. What I learned is that right now they're struggling, Lakota is struggling to keep the teams fully staffed. you know, these are jobs that are really hard and, people, there's a lot of turnover. If you're a mental health clinician dealing with, you know, mental health crisis day in and day out for probably not a great salary, you know, it's tough. So right now, I think that the team is actually maybe even not available to deploy because they don't have all the people they need. The next piece of this that I learned about that is something new is that the county Department of Mental Health has the business card is like law enforcement supplement or something. They're basically designating a mental health clinician to work with police departments. So a clinician was assigned from the county to like several San Gabriel Valley cities, one of them being us. And apparently the other two cities aren't really using that person. So they're actually here a lot, spending a lot of time here and working out of the police department. I didn't really know about that and I didn't know, I just wasn't really
Who
aware.
didn't tell you?
Is it like the Met team? Like the mental health evaluation team that goes out with the law enforcement?
It is specific, the business card is something specific to law enforcement.
Yeah.
So yes, they just, I mean, right, like, yes. So the other day, in fact, I'm trying to get a hold of them. So as an example, this woman that's currently banned, that happened on Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever, last week. And then they were back. And in the meantime, I had talked to the chief of police about what can we do about the situation, right? Like this person needs help. They're not in a mental health crisis. They don't voluntarily want help, but I can't have them here doing what happened the first time, you know? And so we had a whole conversation about, well, what are the angles that you can work in the system? Like, is there a conservatorship situation or a neglect situation? You know, like, how do you get there? So basically we needed a clinician to come and meet this person and kind of start to build this understanding of their need or their situation. So they did dispatch this person, I believe, with the officers. And they did talk, the woman had left, she was outside by then. So they talked to her outside, but nobody told us the outcome of that conversation. So again, I think there's, you know, we just need to build direct relationships. So I emailed her now, and then the police have invited me. I mean, ever since we've been on the security guard topic and trying to get that figured out, we've been having a lot more conversation. And it's the police who said, you should contact Sony and let's get you guys connected. So that they understand, I think, better where we're coming from, right? Like we need to know, how did that go? What did they say? What did you learn? So that we know how to, you know, do we have any kind of path forward, or am I just every day telling her she has to leave or calling the police? Like, what is the plan? So it's actually super exciting though, that there's this person with, you know, highly qualified, who's actually here for us for some amount of time during the week. So super exciting and just a resource, right? Like someone who knows the county system and, oh, well, I can't do that, but you know what? Why don't you talk to the Department of Aging, or you know what I mean? Like someone who knows, you know? So I think it could be really great. And I'm really looking forward to trying to get a meeting with her and starting to get to know her.
You should ask her if she's LPS designated, because I mean, she can do a psychiatric hold.
Oh,
And not all
Yeah.
clinicians are.
Yeah.
If she's assigned with the law enforcement, she probably is,
Yeah.
but you should double check, because that's the other thing, like when I work with the county on this stuff, like different Department of Mental Health clinical staff have different like designations. And in that case of that person, like if you can't get a hold of this person, you might want to call like 988 or the access line, because they'll send a psychiatric mobile team. It can take a long time. Which is unfortunate, but like they can do psych holds, they can start conservatorships and just do different things that might be able to help the situation.
yeah, good. That's good to find out about that. The mental health crisis team, the Wakata team, their clinician is authorized to do that. The quote unquote supplemental outreach team, I don't believe is. So if you're having a mental health crisis and meet all those definitions, you're gonna harm yourself or harm others, pretty much is what it is, which is not what's usually happening for us. Then they have the ability to do that, but I don't know if she does or not, so I'll have to find that out. But yeah, I mean, this woman that, we're dealing with now, I mean, she really, I mean, she can't care for herself, and her quote unquote, caretakers, the people that she seems to be dependent on, are family members, but they're not in a position to take care of her either. So it just seems like, good grief, there has to be some avenue, right? I don't know. It's tough, but anyway, I'm excited about both of those kind of things, both trying to get a little bit more directly connected with Lakota and with, this county person. And I think Lakota, I know we have a council member, maybe two, that have been very kind of critical of the Lakota program. It's not serving our needs, and they're not doing enough, getting called on enough. And, so that person's very eager to try to make better use of them. And so, yeah, we could make better use of them if we were communicating better internally. And that's the meeting we had last week. So I think that basically, I think Lakota, I mean, they don't want a council member unhappy with the service they're providing. So, I think they're as eager as the city is to try to figure out how can we make the best use of the resource that we have. So that is in process. The security guard is, like I said, I think we've gotten past the uniform piece, and they will be dressed like regular, like a shirt and pants and little patches, but no equipment and no kind of tactical look happening. So I think we've settled that. The council, the contract with that company needed to be amended and it's to extend it. And so that happened at the council meeting, I think last week. So that's good. That means that, all the technical things are in place. I talked to, Lieutenant Robledo last week about it, and he was going to try to schedule a meeting this week so that we could kind of hammer out, when are you starting? What are the hours? What are we doing? And I haven't heard from him, so I'm assuming, he's trying to get the right people together. So it's coming. There may be a little bit of it's not like they may not start tomorrow, because the funding, the money is currently funding the person that's sitting at City Hall. So we need to close down that function in order for us to use the money. So they may require, I don't know what the contract says,
So City Hall won't have a security guard anymore?
Yeah, well, they don't really have a security guard. They have like a concierge kind of person. I mean, it sort of depends on it. The person that had that job initially, based on gender and physical attributes, felt more like a security guard, but the idea is that they're not there to be security either. The police department is across, the courtyard, right? So that's not their job, but yeah, so that person now is really just sort of sitting there, keeping track of who's coming in and helping people get where they need to go. So it is coming, and hopefully fairly soon. And that will be great for staff. And then, the incident tracking software that you guys approved, using the Romine money for, we finally got that contract executed last week. So we are going to kind of kick off the implementation stuff. I think it's Monday, the 21st, not next Monday, but maybe the Monday after. So what that entails is basically, we need to develop the database, and, what are we going to be tracking? So we've already kind of brainstormed about that as a staff. In talking to the acting deputy city manager, he was like, you really should be tracking not only staff time, but which staff and how much does it cost? You know, like literally, cause I'm like, well, it takes this many staff hours. He's like, well, but you probably want to be able to say, yeah, and those staff hours are valued at whatever. So some, you know, there's lots of ideas about what we should be trying to capture and how it can help us, and very helpful to have, you know, have that conversation with other people. And of course, this company, this is what they do, so they've heard it all from all kinds of libraries. So I'm assuming, well, I know, they basically come and say, here's like the standard, right, setup, and what else do you want, sort of thing.
I think one other thing, I don't know if you guys are able to track it, but we do this at the county and it's made a big difference, like with our board, is the response time of the people you're
Mhm.
calling.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just your time dealing with it, but when you're calling the Met team or clinical staff or law enforcement and you're having to wait like 4 hours and still try to like maintain the situation.
Yeah.
Like being able to show, like I was speaking with Councilmember Koch, maybe? Yes, about the SG cog stuff, and I was saying like, we should go to Supervisor Barker, like she's over this area and she's very big on supporting like her constituents, and I feel like being able to say like, hey, we have this number of incidents, we have to wait this number of hours sometimes for a response, and we need like dedicated mental health help here, but you need to back it up with the data.
Yeah.
So if like response time, that would be good too.
Yeah. I don't know, I don't know if that's on the list, for sure it is, you know, response at all, you know, like, did they come, or, yeah, so that's a good one, I don't know if I have that, so we'll definitely add that. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that, again, that's why we're getting it, well, we're getting it for two reasons, we're getting it because we need the data, and we need, to be able to mine the data and get information more quickly and easily. And we also are hoping it's going to be, relieve some of the kind of procedural burden of going through these incidents and recording them and tracking them and telling the right people what happened. And, you know, it's been, you know, drafting the letter and doing all the stuff. So it's got kind of a couple of purposes. So we're super excited. There's just a lot of things kind of converging right now that are gonna help. The code of conduct, which you guys are helping with, security guard, better relationships with the social services people that we do have at our disposal, and our incident tracking. So it's good. It's, you know, it's slow, but it's good. You guys have any questions about it? So just programs, I want to definitely, encourage you if you can, and even kids, I know, I hear kids, they have to be big enough. The silent film series is so great. I mean, how
cool.
it's amazing to sit and watch a silent film with the live accompaniment.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
So cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, it's piano. It's not like a big organ like it would be in a movie house down on Broadway, but it's just really great. It was really great. And there was like a family with two kids. Like there was kind of a bunch of different people. And
We still have a piano in the community room?
we do. We have our piano. We don't have
Oh.
the Friends big piano, but we have our own piano. So he said that this film in November that just was rediscovered like 10 years ago in Australia. Somebody came across a print. So he said it's hilarious and it's super fun. And so I highly encourage you. It's really a special opportunity to be able to do that. You don't get to do that very often. And then Teen Advisory Board, it looks like they're up to something. Looks like they're gonna do some crafting in the children's room, so probably kids can just kind of drop in and do it with the teens. Which that's the kids like being with the teens more than anything else. So that's fun, they're gonna do that. It's the time of year for the In and Out Cover to Cover Book Club, which kids
Favorite.
free
Yes.
hamburger, like the
Yes.
most exciting thing
Yes.
ever. It's hilarious how big kids are on this hamburger thing. So kids will come and sign up and read their books and get their In and Out burger. The All Abilities Club is going really well. I mean, we have a relationship with the Institute for the Redesign of Learning. It's open to any adults, caretakers, you know, that have developmental disabilities, but mostly we get this big crowd from the Institute. And it's just great. It's just really nice. It's fun to walk in there and everybody's having a good time, and it's great. So that's still happening, once a month. And then a few things that just happened, Alexis did this, kind of mental health, workshop, worked with the county on that apparently. And then this week we just had, this talk actually last night, which I didn't stay for it, but Maida said it was really great. I mean, it sounded really fascinating that this woman edited the letters of LA Times columnist, no longer living, Al Martinez, who was a columnist with the LA Times for, like 30 years. So I think he's pretty well known. But he, as a young man, before he became a journalist, was called up for duty and went to Korea, and he wrote letters home and did a lot of like pen and ink illustrations in his letters. So she edited these letters and has a really great presentation. So I don't think it was super well attended, which is always the challenge, right? You can plan the greatest things, but if you don't connect with the people who would want to come to it, you've done a lot of work for nothing. And then this last event here, I don't know, did anybody come to that or know about it? The city had a multicultural event, and it was around the park, right? So there was a stage on the side and the food trucks were over there. The library had like 3 tables. And we did our usual, like our button maker, which is a huge hit. And we did prizes and, we just were out there kind of meeting and greeting and talking to kids and families. So that was actually fun. I mean, it's always fun to do those programs. And it's not necessarily a lot of work. In fact, I don't know if you probably didn't come in downstairs, but one of the things we had was a big world map and people could put their little dots on either anything, where you want to go, where your family's from, where, whatever they want to put their dots on. And people have been really enjoying it and they're still doing it downstairs. So that's all that I have for.
I think we're doing communications next. Board communications from me, no, but nothing really, I'm really thankful for everything you guys are doing. I think the elections are going to be right in, and so just everyone vote, and thank you for everything you guys do to support the elections in the city too. It's an important time.
Yeah.
That's all. Others have communications?
No, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
I've got a little tidbit. My daughter found something in Washington Post, and this is unfamiliar to me, called Department of Data. You familiar with this?
Let's see where you're going with it, because there was something in the Post just the other.
Well, this was last October 4, and the title of the thing is "Who Uses Public Libraries the Most?" There's a divide by religion and politics, and it has a whole. Unfortunately, my printer's not color, so all these wonderful graphs.
I can send the link out. I
Yeah.
can send you, yes.
I think it's very interesting to see what the different, like, one example is that, people of Buddhists and Muslims and so forth are much bigger users of the library than, say, evangelical Christians. Anyhow, there's lots of
It's
very
fascinating.
interesting information.
Really interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, we've come across that and we have all been looking at it. I will send the link out to you guys in case you want to take a look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. You always have something interesting.
I appreciate it.
I do love it. I look
Yeah.
forward.
I'm so interested in that because I was gonna say, I kind of miss, it's interesting, like, I don't know if your kids have moved on to reading from Kindles. So that's what my kids do. So we don't actually come to the library much because when they were younger, we used to come all the time. And now they like digitally borrow, so we don't physically come, but like we are library users. But it's hard because like we don't always know all the events that are happening, because like I'm not great at social media and like following that kind of stuff, and they're not like physically here. So I'm
That's
like
interesting.
curious, especially as more and more people do like Kindles, and I don't know that. Like my husband and I recently discovered like there's so many books you can borrow through apps and like Kindles that, so maybe even just more like marketing around, you can still use the library as
Right.
a digital. you know,
Right, or what would bring them in?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if they don't need it for that reason, is there something else that we should be
Yeah.
doing that would interest?
In and out, for sure.
Yeah, in and out,
Yeah.
yeah, no, right, prizes.
You have to
Yeah.
physically bring it, to sign it,
Prizes,
that's why. I
yeah.
said,
Yeah,
what?
prizes is, yeah,
Yeah.
but like you said, the summer, the kids kind of, you know,
Yeah,
they
I
lost
was
their
sharing
things
with
and they
Kathy
didn't.
that my kids, we went traveling and then they lost their
They
pieces
lost-
of paper and they
yeah.
were really devastated and very like, I did read, and I'm like, I know you.
Like maybe we have to keep them here in alphabetical order or something and
Yeah.
kids can, I've never thought, I mean, I don't know, maybe it might be like.
We just always forgot it every time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then we never even claimed our last prize, which they were
Yeah.
super excited about, and then we just, school started. and it was
Yeah,
like-
it's, yeah, well, that's, I talked to those guys about that story because I do think that's something to think about. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, we could talk offline about that, you know, how, what kind of publicity or promotion, how would we reach that
Yeah.
audience? I mean, I think that still people, oh, I didn't know you had ebooks. I mean, you were like,
Mhm.
what do you mean? Like, how could you not know that, you know, you have DVDs?
Yeah.
Yes, we have DVDs. So I think we're so accustomed to, well, of course, the library has this and this.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe people don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have customers who they buy, you know, they're buying audiobooks for
Right.
$29. I'm like, yeah, we have those.
Yeah.
It's free. So yeah, I think that it's an area where there's definitely room for a lot of improvement and trying to both get the word out and then helping the people who need help technologically, although it's not as hard as it was, you know, like 15 years ago to get an ebook on your thing. It was like a whole thing. So yeah, that's really a good insight. And so yeah, we should talk more about that.
Any other Friends of the Library, not here, trustee, not here. Any other communications from you, Kathy?
No.
Any other public comment? No? Sean?
No.
Okay, well, with no further items or comments from staff or board members, I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:20 PM, 8:19 PM maybe, to our next meeting on November 14th at 7 PM.
Thank you, everyone.
Go Dodgers.